Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. Uh, Find It Friday live. In the past, we did this where we were just recording content and then posting it out on Fridays for you guys. But I thought it would be a lot of fun just to do this thing live together so y'all can see how I personally evaluate deals, how I find deals, and how you can do the same thing. So, welcome to this version of Find It Friday live. We found an awesome deal here in Panama City Beach, Florida. This one is showing a 22% cash on cash return up to like $11,000 in net cash flow if you do it right. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to break down how we found this deal, how we evaluated it, how we even talked with some local experts, Joe Roney out there. Shout out to you for helping evaluate this deal with us. And this might be a good deal for one of you to go buy. So let's break this thing down, and we can show you how we got to these numbers, how we validated with the comps, how we even worked with our local experts to make it happen. So let's go back to the first here, and I will show you how I break this down. And one of the reasons I really want to do this is because, when we were building Strike, STRIQ, one of my tech leads was like, Matt, the technology is amazing, but how do we get your brain into this platform? And so one of the ways we're trying to do it, other than AI, AI is going to be coming into this a lot more, is doing a lot more content like this so you can understand how I personally evaluate deals. And the reason why that might be important to y'all is because I've been in commercial real estate about 13 years. I've invested in about 5 short-term rentals that I bought over the past 5 years. And so I've done a lot of this. And I've done like over 700 transactions on real estate standpoint. So, through that experience, I want to be able to just let y'all kind of understand what's going on in my brain so that you guys can take a lot of those practical things and move forward and be successful. So here's the property here that's being pointed out. Again, we're on the Strike STRIQ platform. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a 5-step process to really find these profitable properties. And now what you're going to learn here is something that you can apply in any single market out there. It's a 5-step framework to finding profitable properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset these defaults here. And I'm also going to change this to this purchase price. So, what we're doing with Strike, the whole goal is essentially replacing Zillow, AirDNA, and spreadsheets because, I was like many of y'all out there. I was going through the pain of trying to find deals on Zillow where you kind of look like this, and you're like, well, how much could this thing make? How much could that thing make? And then you go to AirDNA and you try to get revenue potential on it, and then you go to your spreadsheets and see if you could find a good profitable property. So what we've done, step one of all of this is, we've underwritten the entire market so you can see with red, yellow, green what's actually a good deal. So now, with all of that done, I'm going to take you all through that framework that I just mentioned. So, step one of the framework is, determining your why. Now, a good deal for me may not be a good deal for someone else. So, I'm going to pretend like this person, their why is, hey, I want big cash flow property. I want big tax write-offs, and obviously would love this asset to appreciate over time. And hey, the cherry on top would be if I can go use this property for my own use with friends or family, but it's not an essential thing, but it would be like a nice to have thing. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is now that I know my why or this buyer's why, I'm going to go put in my buy box to find this profitable property. So if cash flow is important, let's juice up the cash flow to like a minimum standard. Let's juice up the cash on cash to cut out the noise and really hone in on some of these filters here. And I'll break down some of these filters a little bit more to figure out exactly what we want to go for. And let's just see what happens. So the technology then removes any properties that do not fit that criteria. And you're left with like just a handful of interesting things to go check out. And so this is the one that we found today. Again, it's showing up green, which means a higher cash on cash return type property. So let me break down the buy box again real fast before we move on to the next steps. Now we're underwriting all these properties as if they're um, average revenue. And so one of the key things to learn with any single property, there's a range of revenue potential for any property you look at. And so right now we're underwriting properties based on 50th percentile revenue, knowing every single property has potential to get up to the 75th or 90th percentile through professional design, strategic amenities, and experiences that you can provide. And then, obviously, if you're like on the beach, you can just, already get into the upper tier just because of location. So location does matter sometimes with some of these deals. So what we're doing is we're essentially cutting out the noise when we do this. So now we're going to apply. Let's go through this thing. So this is showing some really interesting metrics that make me want to dive into it further. And when you go see the property itself, you see that it's super close to the beach here. It's got it's got a swimming pool, and it's got these garages here that could be converted to additional bedrooms or game room or theaters. And just more amenity spaces. You've got this cool like balcony view. But it looks like, it's dated, needs improvements on the interior, which honestly, those are good opportunities if you can go force appreciate it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go analyze this thing, and I'm going to take you through my thought process. And so it's a buyer's market right now. And so you could typically get a pretty good discount on these, but I'll just say 1.4 on the purchase price. Maybe you could get a little bit less. Again, this is where the experts will come into play that we'll need to talk to later. And knowing there's these garages that you can convert, let's go juice this up to like 7 or 8 bedrooms, knowing we can get additional sleeping space in there. And let's go look at the revenue potential. So now it's showing this interesting revenue potential with a range. And so what we want to do is go verify comps when we see this. And so we're going to go to the verified comps dashboard here, and I've already kind of put in some filters. Long story short, what it's showing is if you're like a premium type property, you can get up into this like $3 to $375,000 range. Now, a lot of these are like beachfront properties, but some properties like this one that are not beachfront, if they're big enough and if there's not many comps out there or competitors out there, and if you're able to deck it out with some really unique amenities, and if you're close to the beach, like this one has private beach access right here and these rooftop views, there's definitely interesting potential. And in fact, I was talking with Joe Roney about it on our school community. So we've got a free school community if y'all would like to join it. I'll put a link in the bio. I had posted this property here, and he was like, "Hey, this one's really cool because it's got private beach access." And this is where we're doing a lot of like collaboration with these agents. It's got deferred maintenance, so it needs to actually have some capital spent on it. But it's got these garages that could be finished to make into 4th bedrooms and game rooms, again, for each duplex, for each side. And he said, I'd say about 300,000 in capital, but if we could maybe get half of that covered in seller credits, which is awesome. He goes, there's a 7-bedroom property in the similar community doing 250 with an awful property manager. And he's got a 4-bedroom doing 141. So he goes, I'm confident that a 4-bed, that if you added these extra bedrooms and the duplexes on each side, you could do $300,000 or more in possible revenue. And so I was underwriting this, just getting his thoughts on it. And so what we're going to do is, again, that validates that you could probably get into this $300,000 plus range if you did what he was saying, again, from a local expert standpoint. And we're just going to go quickly look at these comps, which you could dive into each one of these to see what they're doing, but you're able to like pull up each comp here and see generally what they look like, how much they're making, and dive into the details. So for the sake of this video, I won't go into that yet. I might do another video on comping later. And so when we get down here, he was saying $300,000 plus. Well, let's stay at this mid scale. We might reduce this down a little bit, but 322 sounds reasonable based on what he was saying and based on what the data is showing here. And so I'm going to go in, and he said about 150,000 on furnishing and design. each. Now the cool thing is he was also mentioning, because it's a buyer's market, you could get seller concessions or seller credits. So this is a cool strategy to where, obviously talk to your agent about this, but you can negotiate off the purchase price, or maybe even keep the purchase price high, but then pull in seller concessions or credits to actually go towards these renovation costs or even furnishing, so that your cash on cash, or your cash uh, outlay that you put in, goes way lower and your cash on cash goes way higher because of it. Okay, we're going to get into the expenses here. We've already underwritten all this stuff with it pre-calculated. Insurance, since it's on a beach, let's juice that up a little bit more. There's no HOA, and then let's add in like $5,000 of miscellaneous just for random things that could come up, because you just never know owning these properties what you might be dealing with. And then let's get into financing. The cool thing here is you can sometimes do 10% second home loans. You can do 15% down, but traditionally 20% down is what you'll probably be looking at, with something like this expensive. And then let's do this. Interest rates are kind of floating around 7%. Again, talk to your lender about that, which we'll have some experts later for y'all. And now if you go to the view summary of this, now we're going to see that this thing will spit out a summary of it, and it's showing a 22% cash on cash return, making like $11,000 a month in net cash flow, which is awesome. And so the cool thing about this is now you've got a full detailed underwriting report that you could either go buy with a capital partner, you could go buy on your own, whatever you want to do, but it's got the full details of that. So you're equipped to move forward, whether you buy it on your own or with someone else. Now, the cool thing about this is, let me show you all this real quick. We've got a tax savings calculator that I'll also drop in the link below so y'all can check it out. So like, if you were to go buy this thing, the total amount to like go buy it and put in the capital is probably like 300 grand of capital plus like another 300 grand to like renovate it. But check this out. If you were to, buy this at 1.4, put in 300 grand of capital, and if say this was your tax bracket at 32%, you would get about like $215,000 in cash back, whenever you file your taxes, or you would avoid paying that. Now, obviously you want to talk to your CPA, but I've done this multiple times on my properties, and this is a pretty good range that's pretty accurate of what you could probably expect from a tax write-off perspective. So that's an enormous return just from a tax perspective, like immediately by buying this property. And again, this is something you can use on this property or any property that you look at in the future. And so the final piece of all this is, okay, well, cool. I like this property. I see that the comps, have validated it. I've had some good conversations about it. Now what? This is where we've got preferred providers. And this was a problem I was facing when I was buying my seaside condo. I had found this really good property, but I was like, crap, I need an agent, I need a lender, I need contractors, designers, all these people. And so Joe, he's one of our local guys here when it comes to like Panama City Beach. So he's here. And the whole point of this is, after you find these deals, Strike will get you like 90% there, like super fast. But it's still wise to have local people go validate this and verify it with you, so that you feel super confident to move forward. And you've got all these experts at your fingertips. So whether it be an agent, a lender like with Parker, who's amazing. I worked with her on a ton of deals. Keystone CPA that can help you with your tax returns and tax strategy. They work with like Michael Lafonte. They work with all sorts of great people out there. Brandon Turner, like Bigger Pockets guy. ELB Consulting, they're the ones that do my cost segregation studies, so I can actually get my tax write-offs. B&B Construction, I'm doing a ton of stuff with them right now. There's other really awesome groups out there. Designers, I mean, I've worked with almost all of these designers that can create that experience. And so when you're looking at your comps, these are the types of people that you'll want to talk to, so that they can help you execute on this, not only with confidence, but execute with excellence, so that you guys are crushing it when it comes to building this thing out, putting in great design, amenities, and experience. And this is what it's all about. If you're wanting to buy a deal, most deals out there, if you just buy them and furnish them, you could expect like this average revenue. But if you buy it and you put in strategic design, amenities, and experience, this is where you can get to this upper range. And this is the unlock. This is the secret of success, not only with this property, but any property that you look at anywhere else across the country for the most part. So I will wrap up there. We'll do a lot more of these in the future, whether it be live or recorded. But just wanted to take y'all through the framework and the systems of how we go about finding these properties, validating them, and verifying them, and then being able to execute with confidence. So thanks for joining today. We will do this again very, very soon.